Today we're going to be talking about section 9.5, factoring trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c. And as we're looking at that form of x squared plus bx plus c, we want to realize that we actually have a 1 x squared in the front. Now, as we're setting up for foiling and reviewing that idea of foiling, we want to look at our first possible ideas here where we have a positive number times a positive number and realize that the first and the first will get us this term, but the last and the last in FOIL comes back, and that equals this back term here, which is going to be a positive number. Next, we have the possibility of a negative number times a negative number. In other words, the last times the last, but here that is going to get us, as you see, a positive number. In comparison to this, we have a positive times a negative. Well, now the last times the last is going to get us a negative number at the back. And so these three basic ideas are going to help us do what we call factoring a trinomial, and it's going to end up factoring into two binomials. Let me show you what that's going to look like. In our first example, we have 7x plus 10 as the last two terms. And so our first thing we do is, what is the sign of the last term? Well, the last term has a sign that's positive. Well, based on the fact that it's a positive number, the signs of each binomial have to be plus and plus. And we're going to use that in just a little bit by putting our two parentheses with a plus and a plus there. Now, at this point, we're going to say, what are the factors of 10? And so we're getting those factors of 10. Well, that's 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. With these two numbers, we want to say, how are we going to put these numbers into this back spot where we're going to multiply? Well, before we do that, we want to look at what the front spot would be. And the front spot is very simple. What multiplies to get x squared? Well, x times x. Now, what multiplies to get 10, but also adds to get 7? Well, hopefully you obviously see it's not going to be 1 and 10, but it is going to be 2 and 5. And so we're going to put a 2 in and a 5 in. With this in mind, remember FOIL, as it's spelled, the O and the I of FOIL spell OI. And that OI stands for outside and inside. Well, the outside, as we check, is positive 5x. The inside, as we check, is positive 2x. And that gives us 7x as an answer, which, as you can see, is going to then lead us back to our final product. So our final product will be, as you see, x plus 2 times x plus 5. And that's going to be our final answer on this problem. As we look down at the next one, we have x squared plus 4x minus 12. As we start the problem, we say, what is the sign of the last term? Well, the sign of the last term is negative. Because the sign of the last term is negative, the signs that must multiply to a negative are a positive times a negative. So we're going to put our parentheses down, and we're going to put a positive and a negative in. At this point, we say, all right, factors of what? Well, that's negative 12. We don't really need to worry about the negative right now, so we're just going to say what multiplies to 12? Well, that's 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Based on those very simple factors of those three, we're going to say it has to be x and x because that multiplies to x squared. I like to try the ones that are closest together first, so I'm going to try my 3 and 4 first. And I'm going to put my 3 and my 4 in, and now I'm going to check it. Outside is negative 4x. Inside is positive 3x. As we add these two together, that gives us negative 1x. And unfortunately, that is not our 4x that we need in the middle. So we'd have to try another possibility. So 3 and 4 do not work. So I'm going to try my second possibility. Remember, we have x plus and x minus. Next, I'm going to try my 2 and my 6. So I'm going to put my 2 in and my 6 in. I'm going to try it again. outside and inside, and I get negative 6x and a positive 2x. Well, that's negative 4x. That's very close to what we wanted. However, it's just opposite in sign. And so when it's opposite in sign, very simply, your answer will be exactly opposite of what you had. Instead of having x plus 2, you're going to have x minus 2. And instead of x minus 6, you're going to have x plus 6. And if you do the outside of this one, you see that's 6x minus 2x. And so there it is. The third time is the charm, and there is our answer. As we flip the page and look to the next problem, we're going to start to see some patterns as we work through this. And as we're working on this, we're going to realize that we have a positive number on the back side, that positive number being 20. And so we have to say to ourselves, what multiplies to a positive 20? Well, very quickly, I think you realize that what multiplies to a positive 20 is going to be y plus and y plus. The two pluses because the last term is a positive. So what multiplies to 20, factors of 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Well, I always like to try to start with the one that is closest together, the 4 and the 5. So I'm going to put 4 and 5 in. And now I'm going to test. Outside, 5y, positive. Inside, 4y. Adding those together, we get a positive 9y. And sure enough, that's correct. So 4 and 5 are our possible numbers, and our answer is y plus 4 times y plus 5. Moving down, our next one has a squared plus 13a plus 30. Once again, it's a positive number at the back end. So as we look at our factors, we're going to have a plus and a plus. As we consider what we're factoring of the number 30. So those factors are 1 and 30. You can probably think of them yourself. 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. Those are my factors of 30. I'm going to try the ones that are closest together first, 5 and 6. My outside and my inside get me 6a positive plus 5a. Well, that's 11a. Unfortunately, that one did not work. Next, I'm going to try my 3 and 10. They're the next ones. They're the closest ones that are together. So a plus 3, a plus 10. Well, those, as you see, that's 10a, and 3a, that's 13a, and that's our answer. So my answer to our problem is going to be a plus 3 times a plus 10. Moving down, now for the first time we have a problem that no longer has both pluses in our system. So as we look at this problem, we realize that we're going to have something different here. It's a plus at the back end, but because it's a minus in the middle, we have to have two minuses in our problem. So it's going to be k minus and k minus. What multiplies to 18? 1 and 18. 2 and 9, 3 and 6. I'm going to try the ones that are closest together like always. 3 and 6. I get negative 6k minus 3k from the outside and the inside. That's negative 9k. Unfortunately, that did not work, so we're off to the second attempt. My second attempt, I'm going to try 2 and 9. K minus 2, k minus 9. I try my outside and my inside on this one. Negative 9k, negative 2k, that's negative 11k, and that's what we want. So my answer will be k plus 2 times k minus 9. Moving down, as we're looking at our next problem, we have to consider what we're going to have. We have m squared plus minus 15m plus 36. Let me erase a couple of these little spots here. I'm not sure why they came up. We have a positive at the back end, but we have a negative in the middle. That means we're going to have m minus and m minus. Two negatives multiply to a positive, but add to a negative. So I have the factors of 36. So as we're looking at the factors of 36, I'm sure you can always think of 1 and 36, maybe 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and if you're fast, you might even think of 6 and 6. Well, let's try the ones that are closest together first, because that often is the easiest one. So I put in my 6 and my 6. Outside and inside, well, they're both negative 6m. That makes negative 12m. Unfortunately, that does not work. Let's try 4 and 9. For 4 and 9, we have m minus 4, m minus 9. Well, inside and outside here, negative 9m, negative 4m. That's negative 13m. Unfortunately, that doesn't work either. So let's try our third possibility, 3 and 12. m minus 3, m minus 12. Well, outside and inside now, negative 3m, negative 12m, that's negative 15m. So it looks like on this problem, our third one was the charm, and that's the one that works, m minus 3 and m minus 12. As we continue to kind of look through some of these problems, we're going to have to consider what do we do differently when we have a minus at the back end of our problem as we do on this one. Well, how do you multiply to get a minus? Very simply, you multiply a positive times a negative. As we multiply a positive by a negative to get 8, as you can easily think, the factors are 2 and 4 or 1 and 8. Like always, I'm going to try to start with the one that's closest together, and I'm going to put in 2 and 4. I'm going to try my outside and get negative 4x, my inside and get positive 2x, and I get negative 2x as an answer. Pretty straightforward, and it looks like that is our answer for our problem on our first try. It won't always work that way, but when it does, it sure is nice. Moving down on our page, our next one, once again, you notice, has a negative sign at the back end. And so, as we're trying to figure this out, we're going to have y and y, but our middle ones are going to be a plus and a minus. Factors now are of 40. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, maybe you consider 5 and 8. Let's try 5 and 8 because those are the closest ones together. So we put in a 5, we put in an 8. We do the outside, negative 8y. We do the inside, positive 5y. Those combine to negative 3y. Not what we are looking for. We're looking for a positive 6. So let's try a second one. Once again, we have y and another y. But we're still going to have a plus and a minus. I'm going to try 4 and 10 this time. Positive 4 and negative 10. My outside is negative 10y. My inside is positive 4y. So that's a negative 6y. That's very close to what we are looking for. It's the opposite of what we want. Since it's the opposite of what we want, what we're going to do to write our answer is we're going to write down the opposite of positive 4 and the opposite of negative 10, and our answer will be y minus 4, y plus 10. Once again, the reason we changed the signs is because we got the opposite of what we wanted in our problem. Our last problem today is unique because we have x squared minus x minus 42. Let's start this time with the factors of 42. As you might think, 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3, 14, 4 doesn't go in, 5 doesn't go in, but 6 does, 6 and 7. So, our parentheses, because we have x times x is going to be x squared, and a plus times a minus will be our middle two terms. because we have a negative 42 at the back. I'm going to try the ones that are closest together like always, 6 and 7. And so we're going to have x, sorry about that, we're going to have x plus 6 and x minus 7. We go outside and inside, just like always. That's negative 7x and positive 6x. So that's negative 1x. And that's what we were looking for, because remember, this is actually a little 1 right there. So my answer, very simply, is what we started with, of x plus 6 and x minus 7. So we've got hopefully a number of different methods here, and I think the most important thing to remember is a positive times a positive is going to be a positive. A negative times a negative will be a positive, but on the unique case, a positive times a negative is going to equal a negative number. Our square for today is 18 squared. And 18 squared, as you might know, is 324. And as we're thinking through this process, we want to make sure we're realizing and remembering our squares for our problems.